Hi everyone, if you're watching this video, you probably are preparing for Lantite, the numeracy component. I'm just gonna share quickly with you a very important notes that I think that whoever is doing Lantite, they really should be confident in these areas. We start with something very basic, but a lot of people get confused about. That's north, south, west, east. Please do not confuse between west and east. Okay? Another area that people get confused with, which is the percentage. So you've got two different questions that can happen. So if you have 66 of 120, they will ask you, tell me what's the percentage. So what does this represent? 66 of 120. So you need to multiply it by 100 and then divide it by 120. So you'll be able to get the percentage. So 66 represents 55% of 120. What about if they tell you 80% of 30? What's 80% of 30? Basically 80 times 30, and you need to divide it by 100. That's 24. So please also be really careful and just know the difference, okay? Another area, actually probably I should have mentioned before the video, but the numeracy test has 65 questions and it has two sections. Section 1 has 52 questions. You can use the calculator. In section 2, it has 13 questions. You don't need to use the calculator, okay? Let's get back to another important notes. Let's talk about measurements. So if you've got squares, probably this doesn't look like a square, but let's pretend. So square, and you've got these are the sides. Of course, they are equal in the square, right? They ask you about the area, and this you might get this question. The area, it's you time sides together, okay? Which that would be sides, one side and that square, okay? Another method to find the area, you could, if you have the perimeter, you could just square the perimeter and divide it by 16. What about the rectangle? If you have been asked what's the area of a rectangle, that's the length, that's the width. The area is, of course, length times width. What about the volume? The volume is length times width times height, okay? That would be the height. All right. What else I think you should also be aware of? Let's talk about if you've got they tell you 3/4 of a volume, and you need to find what does that represent. It's just basically you need to multiply the volume with 3/4, okay? And usually if that questions that you don't have a calculator, just multiply it by 3 and then divide it by 4. Also, things that are really important for you to know, that 1 liter, what does it represent? I'm just going to write them here. 1,000 centimeter cube. 1 hectare represent 10,000 square meter, okay? And I know this is can be a bit tricky, but if they ask you to add two areas together, that means the unit, it's gonna be, let's say, millimeter, but it's a square millimeter because you're adding two areas together. And if they ask you to convert that to square meter, remember you're dividing now with a million instead of 1,000, okay? This is also important.